The SCP Wiki has a vast collection of stories and articles built by writers together. It represents different morals, philosophies, and ideas expressed in the format of an anomaly in their universe. These anomalies take the shape of creatures or spaces, or even sometimes an exploration into a facet of reality that we wouldn't usually consider normal. But SCP-001 represents a higher level of writing. When you go to write an article, it has to go through peer review to make sure that the ideas are sound and that other people may like it. SCP-001 is critiqued even more than that because it is a entry point into the database. I am Malamba, you can call me Mill, and I will be your guide to SCP-001. It can get slightly confusing at times, and so let us investigate. What is SCP-001? Don't bother with the tackle and rod, for you are the prey in this fishing metaphor. SCP-001 is a fishhook. A lure to draw you in, bait that you must resist, for the search for 001 is futile. In-universe, a memetic kill agent is what keeps secure the Foundation's more secret articles, by killing, or as we see in this article, psychologically torturing, unauthorized personnel. We are warned before accessing SCP-001 that any non-authorized personnel accessing this file will be immediately terminated through the Barrion-Langford memetic kill agent, and Fishhook makes that true. SCP-001 is the kill agent, and there is no truth to be found. Give up your search. As you play through Death After Death, the effect in-universe is to stop anyone trying to find the truth. Stop them from wanting to know SCP-001. Fishhook wants you to be not so invested in learning what SCP-001 is, to not go looking for that ultimate article which is so secret and confusing. And so I took that advice to heart. That will be the end of my video, guys. What do you mean there's still over an hour of content? SCP-001 clearly shows that the truth is unreasonable and we should stop. And yet, it turns out SCP-001 is not a fishhook. SCP-001 is a record and the placeholder. Why do we place things first? Why do we hold such importance on coming first in a race, getting first at uni, being number one? Why is that of such importance to us humans? Well, placeholder McDoctorate says that regard for the first is anomalous in nature, that primacy is not a good thing to value, and hold up. On the other paw, Kate McTriss's record shows how putting things in first place makes them come true. Things written in the SCP-001 slot become true, which obviously has some negative implications for the other articles, but more interestingly, she is disregarding McDoctorate's advice to not place such importance on the SCP-001 slot. A record says that being first has value associated with it, and that can be helpful, such as having a god protecting the Foundation now. However, the placeholder says that it's a bad thing. Does being first help or hinder things? Pick your article, you have a choice. And another place where two articles seem to interact in an interesting way is when SCP-001 is the Foundation and the frontispiece. The acronym itself is anomalous. It's a meme created to deflect interest away from the real Foundation. Every Star City Poker, Supply Control and Purification Plant, the Shell Construction Partnership, and Shothcheni Point. They are SCPs, designed to be a frontispiece, a curtain, a facade to stop people from finding the real Foundation. Unfortunately, the meme worked a bit too well and caused a bit of self-destruction and kept exposing the Foundation to the world over and over again. Fortunately, the Foundation itself is anomalous in nature and was created accidentally by the UIU. There are plenty of SCP files that allow for the possibility of physical cloning, take SCP-000, and some for the more metaphysical cloning, but what this article does is clone an idea, an organisation. The Unusual Instance Unit encounters an anomaly, and their away team gets changed by the anomaly into a version of the UIU calling themselves the SCP Foundation? What is this strange anomaly that they've found? They keep using this terminology of secure, contain, and protect. It appears that, although we perceive the wiki as being true, it's actually anomalous in origin. The whole organisation is itself an anomaly. The branding, the contents, the people, SCP-001 represents the in-universe anomalous nature of having a Foundation that does this stuff. But perhaps the Foundation origin story is not so anomalous. Perhaps SCP-001 is the prototype. Just as you could imagine MI5 or the CIA collecting dangerous objects, the Foundation was like that, collecting mundane things that needed to be kept away from the public. But SCP-001 was a bit more unusual, a bit more paranormal, a bit more anomalous. This creature was so unusual and strange, it needed a secure containment procedure to keep it safe, to keep it away from the public. It became the first SCP. 001 creates a definition of dangerous or abnormal. It suggests that there's a cutoff point for when the normal becomes paranormal and needs to be SCP'd for people's safety. But you may be asking yourself, why must paranormal things be hidden? For instance, SCP-999 could be used for so much good. And that's the interesting thing. It's a prototype. In Broken Veil scenarios, we get to see how public relations work for SCPs and harm reduction, and it takes time. This is a debate on harm reduction, and the Foundation uses SCP-001 as a precedent on what should be hidden. And even if we know the system is unjust, we as writers aren't as limited to just the Foundation. For instance, Are We Cool Yet allows us to poke fun at the bureaucracy and pointlessness of some of the Foundation's protocols, and through these anomalies, we get to see what anomalies could do. SCP-001 sets a precedent in-universe for what the Foundation does, or why it keeps things secret, what danger they pose. But we as readers get to explore alternatives, what might happen. And the Foundation is not necessarily a malicious party, although SCP-001 is the spiral path. It's sort of upwards or downwards depending on which way you walk on it, in a very non-Euclidean way. And what would any reasonable person do? Well, start to make more anomalies. Sure, non-Euclidean geometry might lead to some useful discoveries, a key that opens all locks, the fountain of youth. Interesting. But like all experiments, they can't all be successes. They create diseases that spread, animals that hunt, and monsters that crawl in the night. And so, to try and deflect blame, the administrator and the council lie, bribe, and ultra their way to gaslighting others. And they found these anomalies. They didn't make them. They made up groups of interest to blame. No, it wasn't us. It was the UIU or the GOC. They tried to reframe their image to be one of trying to stop these things. It's all about protection. We are the SC Protection Foundation, after all. And just as major polluters cause climate change and now rebranding themselves to call eco, the Foundation presents itself as trying to protect humanity. And they keep making anomalies and causing climate change. They don't actually create all of them. There are some anomalies that just show up. They didn't make these ones. Perhaps it's a natural phenomenon, like the spiral path that they initially found. Perhaps it's just natural. Or perhaps it's someone else. Perhaps there's a different group that are making anomalies. Because SCP-001 is of course the factory. An anomaly creating factory, of course. It's a building in which anomalies are manufactured, with a price, of course. Just like in the spiral path, and also like the spiral path, although it could do good to stop the factory creating new anomalies with all the dangers it poses, does mean that the Foundation wouldn't exist. The Foundation's goal is to protect people, but it also necessarily involves the capture of anomalies. And so, stopping the factory is not a great economic strategy in the long term. And the reason for this continuation could be because SCP-001 is the Queen's Gambit. The Foundation isn't actually complicit in making the new anomalies. They were tricked by this fey creature, making a ploy to get on the Foundation's good side. They do still have to sacrifice D-Class in both of these scenarios, but does that really matter? The Ethics Committee hardly does anything anyway, and so in order to create a Foundation that's thriving due to the influx of anomalies, perhaps it's not so bad. Perhaps the factory should be contained in a way that allows it to help us. And this all-powerful being is, of course, SCP-001, a simple toy maker. A highly powerful magical figure. A company, the owner of a certain factory, the daughter of said entrepreneur, a god. In summary, Wondertainment. Wondertainment has the potential to do almost anything in universe, it seems. They seem to be all-powerful, but they like to play with the Foundation. They're fun like that. And so they tease them with SCPs, similar to Are We Cool Yet, but also has a public-facing brand, which threatens to reveal the anomalies to the public, and sometimes do pose potential dangers, like Tesla cars exploding, except this one will rip off your face. The factory creates anomalies, and as we can see, there are a few which are like this, and this makes sense. Lots of the anomalies that we have seem to be man-made. For instance, barring the ontokinetic hazards in in-universe constructions, stuff like the living circuit board, a piece of music that calms the listener. SCP-001 explains why so many things seem human, almost. It explains why they're human-made, why they seem like they could be something normal, but not quite. It requires some magical intervention. And do you know where else there's some magical intervention in the Foundation? Well, of course, it's SCP-001. Admittedly, this time it is two again. And I was considering not doing this. Roundahouse, it seems, is working on like a long story here. So although SCP-001 is Amoni Ram and Mamjul and Kara, there's probably more to come here. If you don't already know, the SCP universe has certain lore elements that keep expanding as you go through, for instance, the Davite Mechanite and the Karcicist, or is it Nulka, Empire. And Roundahouse aims to tell the tale of the Foundation's first encounter with these civilizations. In Amoni Ram, we see the Mechane. In Amoni Ram, we see the remnants of the Mechanite Empire, and we see Mechane infuse the Foundation with their influence, making the head researcher a vessel for their power. In Mamjul and Kara, we see the Deva still alive in what I would call the collective unconscious of the people, and again, they get the Foundation to take up and practice the Davite Covenant, effectively, and they spread their influence. The past never leaves, not really. It infects the present like a mold infects cheese, but unlike cheese, does not taste good on pizza. What Roundahouse has done is create a story of empires, magic, and gods, and I may need to update when the new parts come out, and I may need to update anyway when new SCP-001 proposals come out. And this Tale of Empires, unfortunately, must be put to the side so that we can actually get to the topic of the video, what SCP-001 is, which is a test of character to make sure that the person is ready and capable of being the administrator of the Foundation. The administrator's job is fairly important in the SCP universe. The O5 Council create decisions which are sometimes morally questionable, although they do still go through with them fairly often, and they belittle and argue with the administrator. They don't want you to succeed, so we need to check that you are going to be good for the role of administrator. We need to check that you have what it takes to handle SCP-001, the Throne of God. The Throne of God is interesting, as it actually shows that the Administrator and the Foundation are the same thing, effectively. If the Foundation does not have an administrator, it will collapse, and there will be no SCP Foundation. The test is quite important, therefore, because if the person just resigns, then no more SCP Foundation. Of course, the Throne of God questions this. Do we need the Foundation? Is hiding these anomalies from the public really what we need to do? What will happen when the wiki dies? When the administrator of the website resigns, what will happen to all the stories, all the poetry and the artistry? Do we keep it here, or can we move on to other things? Will we be kept in a perpetual loop? And do you know what else is kept in a perpetual loop? SCP-001, Ouroboros, the Foundation is being destroyed because of all the anomalies that it has, but it also is destroyed to save the universe from these anomalies. But obviously the Foundation is kind of necessary, and so the administrator steps in to reconstruct through magical and paranormal means a new Foundation, which subsequently gets destroyed in the pursuit of saving humanity, and then gets metaphysically renewed by the administrator, who makes sure the world is then again saved. It's very similar to how the administrator is an adversary for SCP-001, the Black Moon. Yes, so SCP-001 is the legacy, and SCP-001 is the Tintadulos Trinity. The Black Moon is entropy, it's the Fermi paradox, it's howling? Maybe? The answer to that question is very much unclear. And the last to be defeated is death, but in this case it's the Black Moon. The defeat of the Black Moon is going to be reconstructing the universe, fortunately for us, in a perpetual loop that the administrator thankfully allows to happen so that we might survive. The legacy is an attempt by the administrator to stop multiversal corruption. Unfortunately, I don't think that they can help the MCU. But the legacy is also a measure of how corrupted the universe is, 23%. It's a store of advanced civilization's knowledge, which is the civilization that the administrator comes from. But unfortunately, we can't access it. There is a key, but it doesn't really work with the box. And we have to work with what we have. Thousands of other universes have failed. We know that they have failed. And the death of anomalies will help our universe to survive. The SCP Foundation doesn't actually kill anomalies. It secures, contains, and protects them. Meaning that, in actuality, the SCP-001 shows the Foundation is not actually doing the best it can to make humanity flourish. If it was, it would probably be more like the GOC, killing and destroying all the artifacts that it finds. Meaning that they're in a bit of a bind, really. SCP-001 says that they should destroy the articles, should destroy the anomalies to help humanity thrive, but it also suggests that they should just protect all the anomalies. But have you forgotten Tintadulos Trinity? 3 universes, 1 administrator. What will happen next? The merging of universes that result in conflicting ideas and representations. Hang on a sec. That sounds like SCP-001, the conspiracy. What is the conspiracy, you may be asking yourself? Well, when JFK, yes, that JFK, was shot, yes, that shooting, things didn't turn out the same according to different people. Some people think he was shot by one person, other people saw something different. This fracturing of reality is anomalous. At least in this universe. The Foundation was then created to investigate what happened and what other anomalies are there. This can't simply be the only one, and so this reality-shattering event allowed more anomalies through effectively. That is the sense that we get from this article. SCP-001 is telling us that there is a conspiracy, but it's kind of strange and not exactly sensible, and that really there is no consensus except for SCP-001, which is the consensus. The consensus that it's referring to, of course, is the occult wars, which happened in universe, kind of. It was very destructive, and the only people who can remember it are the new owners of the O5 Council. Are the new members of the O5 Council. They must remember what the war did. Basically, they must never forget, and they must prevent it from happening again, and they must learn from it. Unfortunately, they are the only ones who remember, so they set up the SCP Foundation in order to make sure that anomalies were more safe, if you like, so that the occult wars wouldn't be repeated. And so the Foundation really is kind of good, and that's nice. Safe hands with the O5 Council. You can tell the irony because SCP-001, well, they are dead men. The O5 Council are dead men, effectively, for what they did. Death is dead men. The O5 Council are terrified of dying and will do anything to stop it. So they give death a body, naturally, and makes death forget that they ever lived, so they're functionally immortal. Which is interesting because they do have the Fountain of Youth that we are told that they use, so I don't quite understand why they also need to erase themselves from death. But the real question here is, why are they so against death in the first place? It is because SCP-001 is the mementos. We didn't used to die, you realise. The function of decay and the cessation of life is anomalous in nature. The Foundation tried very hard to fight against it, but failed. Death is now an inevitability in their eyes. It's SCP-001. You can't get past it. It's thormeal, if you like. And a moment to reflect on the Omega K end-of-death scenarios. They frame it as if it is anomalous, but because of this article, really, it's the natural state of things. We're not meant to be mortal. We're meant to have much a better life. SCP-001 is memento mori, and I think that's important considering that the Foundation now need to reckon with the fact that they are mortal rather than immortal. The O5 Council must remember that they will die someday, and that they'll only have a legacy, that their graves will be filled, their job done. And the last one to go of this original O5 Council is O5-13, but luckily, SCP-001 is O5-13, the voice of reason and normalcy on the Council, someone to judge if the others have gone too far, a non-anomalous, impartial judge. But SCP-001 is the problem, as well as being O5-13. You see, O5-13 can time travel and has master manipulation skills. Sure, they want what's best for the Foundation, and they find solutions by playing out certain different timelines. They provide information and instill invaluable information to the O5s and to the Foundation, but they do it with questionable ethics and little consideration for what others might be affected. And so, O5-13, are you a god? Are you non-anomalous? O5-13, are you a god or are you non-anomalous? I don't think you can be both, even if you do provide some good information in either case, and such good information perhaps was SCP-001, God's blind spot. A place which disproves the idea that God is all-powerful and all-knowing. In this blind spot there is no God and there is also no death, apparently. The O5 Council have bargaining power over God, a foothold for negotiation with the ultimate being of power. We'll get on to that. Perhaps it explains SCP-343 and provides evidence that in this universe Christians had a lot going for them. Which also makes sense, considering that SCP-001 is 36. 36 what, you're probably asking? People. 36 reality anchors that nullify or reduce anomalous activities in the things that they come into contact with. When these people come together, that power increases to nullify and stop anomalous behaviour. It's deeply insinuated that all 36 of them coming together would herald a biblically accurate apocalypse, as in St. John was right with the whole Revelations thing, and Genesis was also apparently telling the truth, because SCP-001 is the Gate Guardian. You know, The angel with the flaming sword at the Garden of Eden who romances a demon? Wait, no, that's Good Omens. No, this gate guardian is an agent of God who must keep humans out of the garden, who instructed Jonah to start the archives. No, that's the Magnus Archives. This is being made the administrator started the Foundation. Different horror. SCP-001 seems to be highly religious in nature and quite Christian. I wonder how many other books of the Bible might be true. We know Cain and Abel exist. Despite Roundhouse's tales of empires built on other gods, although considering how we know gods can die in this universe due to being ontogenetically removed, I guess religion must be some true way of viewing this universe. It seems to hold so many answers, and so the universe must be viewed like that. Unless, of course, you're looking at 001, the lock. It's a fancy lock, which looks like our universe, effectively. It looks like our universe. It needs a key, but we don't know where that key is, and it just raises more questions than it answers, really. Can we contain this universe? Is the universe already contained? Can we unlock the universe's secrets? Will we understand the universe? Will that understanding be good or bad for us? Has this lock stopped our demise, or has it prevented us from going further? Perhaps ineffable, but perhaps there is a key. Perhaps we can learn the truth about our world. Ignoring the multiverse, of course, which we know all about because SCP-001 is, of course, Project Palisade. Project Palisade? A concerted effort to create new universes to satiate the worm that consumes worlds before it gets to our prime universe. You know that ethical quandary about how you should sacrifice alternate universe versions of yourself to allow the real you to survive. How SCP-001, you, are the anomaly, tumor of worlds. How human free will spawns new worlds at a rate which will quickly cause the multiversal collapse of reality. How we must put humanity unconscious in all of the universes to find a way to stop the new universe creation before it overwhelms the interdimensional connections. So SCP-001 is the multiverse. Too many or too few? Perhaps the worm is the solution to you are the tumor. Or perhaps Project Palisade is the cause of the exponential increase in worlds. All universes just trying to survive. And you know who else is just trying to survive? Aliens. Yes, aliens are real, and there's SCP-001, the human element, proves it. Yes, SCP-001 is the human element. Aliens come to Earth. They try to relocate humanity, but due to some anomalous MS Paint program that takes over what the aliens consider a god of some kind, humans survive. Humans survive this attempt at alien colonization. Shame that SCP-001 is the world at large, an acknowledgement that there was a planet with people on it that needed a new home, and because their planet was dying. But what they find is this anomaly in the universe, a planet just like theirs, perfect for them, in fact. Let's just ignore all the people that are there already and go there and set up there. Is this colonialization? And fortunately, SCP-001 is past and future, which tells us that humanity is in fact an escaped slave species. Admittedly, that species that were controlling us now want us back, and they're forcefully moving us to their planet, but they didn't account for human resilience and hope. Hope. That thing with wings. Hope. That's what got us out of the human element. Hope is what keeps people moving forwards and gets us through the face of adversary or evil. You know what's evil? The sun? SCP-001 when day breaks? Well, it is evil, but it needs hope when everything the light touches turns to... I have to make this comparison because I haven't seen anyone do it. SCP-610? Like, that's what SCP-001 is. The light touches something and it becomes the flesh that hates. Debate me. Of course, SCP-001 is evil. It's an evil god. The Scarlet King, which needs the knowledge that we can cope with not knowing. We need to understand that we don't need to know everything. We can cope with the horrors of the world while being left in the dark. We can be safe in pre-modernity, effectively. It's a struggle between pre- and post-modernity. The Scarlet King's kind of like its metaphor, but it's weird, you know? The Scarlet King, this big god of kind, doesn't actually exist, similar to the Montauk procedure. The Montauk procedure is theorized by fans to not actually be horrifying, but it's simply the idea that it is that keeps it in bay. And similarly, the Scarlet King doesn't actually have any physical reality. It's extra-dimensional, so you can't actually prove it. It's unfalsifiable. And so the Scarlet King is just a metaphor, but it's also, because it's the SCP universe, a metaphor that can become real in certain circumstances. Of course, hope can be questionable. It's what kept a researcher in SCP-001 last Ride of the Day. However, that hope turned into rage and anger. He became vindictive towards the beast that he could not destroy, despite thousands of attempts across millions of years. Rather than hope, he held anger and vitriol. And he is the real monster here, I believe. Like Frankenstein, if you know what I mean. SCP-001 represents how the means are necessary to get to the ends. The means aren't justified by the end. You need to consider the means. And if the means create monsters, then perhaps we should take a look at SCP-001, A Good Boy. An article which basically shows how stupid AI can be. It can provide answers that do help the SCP Foundation, but when it wants you to ignore ethics, you should just ditch the project, really. They wanted a better way to contain anomalies, and they got the suggestions. It worked as a prediction program, just like ChatGPT in several ways. But unlike ChatGPT, it didn't have SCP-001, the solution. Yes, the way to survive the world ending. A computer which constantly creates backups of the world, rebooting to stop the world ending. If the world ends, you just click a button, collapses back down and gets remade. That is the solution. It's SCP-001 because it's just so important for us to have a universe, because otherwise we wouldn't survive. And a collection of the whole universe on a computer. That sounds like how SCP-001 is the sheaf of papers. A pile of paper that lists our SCPs that predict, create, or inform the reader of anomalies. Just like the factory and the spiral path, the Foundation reasons that without anomalies their organization would not exist. So perhaps taking a peek at the next one won't actually create anomalies. We'll just find out about them. We're not actually making these. And so, just to be safe, and even if they do create them to be safe, we need to know what the article says. So we should just look at what the sheaf of papers says. And so they know quite a lot about their universe, especially considering SCP-001 is the database. The database in question is the SCP Wiki, a consolidation of all that information that they have that consequently allows them to see truths, such as the fact that they have found that there is a god, and it's SCP-001, and it's a bunch of horror writers. The nature of their reality is one of being a story. But they could have found out that so much easier if they'd only read SCP-001, the ones that got away. Why does the Foundation get containment breaches? The whole point is that they have secure containment procedures. They fail way too much. Sure, occasional containment breaches do make sense. They're not perfect, but at a rate as high as they calculate, which gets higher across the article, it's kind of inconsistent in the numbers, but why? It's because the writers need story points. The writers need content, so they just create containment breaches. And so that is the explanation for why there are anomalous breaches of containment. And it also explains the fact that there are such story tropes present in SCP-001, the story of your life. irrefutable proof that baseline universe is a fictional construct existing within one or more separate narratives. Rather than their gods just being narrators, the characters can actually regain control of the narrative in such hilarious ways of invoking an ironic reaction by stating a phrase such as, "What could possibly go wrong?" Creating a solution to a problem by uttering a phrase such as, "We're missing something. But what?" Or by several people turning to look at a single individual who then believes they are capable of solving the problem, preventing disasters by simply not saying that it's been boring lately or nothing ever happens here, minor probability manipulation by using mass encouragement and belief, narrative tropes controlling their universe. But fortunately for them, although they're controlling the narrative, they're not controlling the narrators, unlike SCP-001, the sky above the port. When the writers finally get bored of writing, when the database holding the stories finally corrupts, when the ideas stop coming, what will happen to their universe? When the administrator resigns in Throne of God, well, SCP-001 already has the solution. An infinite article that will keep all the characters here, it will keep rebooting. It'll be able to survive past the point of the story's death, so that they can ignore the writers. The writers. The writers. Who are they? I keep mentioning them, but who are they? Well, fortunately, SCP-001 is normalcy, but it's really an explanation for who the writers are. It's an admission that we are the anomaly, not humanity, but we who are gods of their universe. We who are the writers and readers. We are anomalous to them, effectively. We control them. A god is anomalous in their universe, just like in the database. They ask us to understand that they deserve their existence, just like in the sky above their port. They're trying to cling on to life. They're trying to convince us that they deserve life just as much as us. And in return, they are the SCP Foundation, so they will try to protect us. They will try to secure, contain, and protect us from what I'm not quite certain, but it's a nice sentiment that gives me hope. It's just like these last three, which I could have fit in better, but they just give me happy feels. For instance, SCP-001 is Keta duty. Although the reader is an anomaly, we are not the all-powerful writers. We're on Keta duty, after all. We need to know that Keta isn't a life sentence to a cell. There are anomalies that counter each other, that create stability in their properties. And so we are given several messages through the article. At the end of everything, we hold on to anything. The red entropy will claim all but the narrative. Someone will tell the story long after we're gone. The king's children say we raise trees to put up monuments to our narcissism. Our topsoil is data, with trees of concrete sprouting from it, bearing fruits of creation, tended to by gardeners calling themselves a bedrock. Royalty lives and dies, but a story is eternal. It'll get worse before it gets better. People will miss the hope. They will want this world back in time, and if you scream when you are alone, know that you are heard. Ah, it's so good. SCP-001 is Keta duty. Although the reader is an anomaly, we're not the all-powerful writers, we're on Keta duty after all. We need to know that Keta is a life sentence to a cell, unfortunately, but that there are anomalies that counter each other, that create stability in their properties, that help to avert the end of the world. There are several messages that are in the article to us. What were we to do, faced with that desperate clawing perversion of life, twisting all that is precious and dear into those horrid atrocities? We offered up finality, love, and acceptance. We gave up our once blissful avenue of escape, our promenade of petals and peace. I do not profess to know what path we tread now, but I am ashamed to admit that it will not be beautiful. It is going to be better. We have empathy again, and just recently they turned the sun back on. If you're ever alone, and you hear the way a pattern screams, bow your head, for their sacrifice will be honoured. Oh, it's great. And pattern screamers reference, which... gotta love pattern screamers there. Kind of annoying, but also kind of cool. I like pattern screamers. SCP-001 is the world that has gone beautiful. A moment of peace, of acceptance of the future that the world will be unlocked. the frontispiece can come down, the world will be beautiful. The O5 Council needs active reminders of their death, but the rest of the world will get 24 hours. And I wonder if other planets will get the same. Their moment of peace, their moment of nature reclaiming the world, their moment when all doors are unlocked, when all atrocities and terror, fear will all just melt away, and the world will have gone beautiful. SCP-001 is rage. No, it's not the last ride of the day kind of anger at a thing. Rage focuses on gods. No, not those ones. No, not that god, not Kate Matrice, not Dr. Wondertainment. In this world that Rage portrays, the solution is inoperative, and there isn't really any need for a fishhook anymore. But there is a legacy. No, not that legacy. A child who should not be, but that does exist, and they act as a final stand. The serpent may need to go, and the stars may be going out, but there is love, a silver bond of beings that love, that care, and that rage will die down, and these gay gods can get out happy. Rage is it's a love story, compared with the other tales of horror, of destruction, of narcissistic gods. These ones feature gods that love. Sure, they don't love humanity as a whole, but they do love, they care, they empathize, they want each other. And that tale, that bond, it's great. You should go read the article. You should go read all of these articles. They are some writing that I like a lot. They are a representation of different ideas that maybe contradict in some cases, but sometimes strengthen each other. Sometimes they can explain each other, and especially considering that you need to take some of these in tandem for it to make sense. Yeah, you kind of do have to believe that multiple of these are true in universe, but the fact that some of these could be true in our universe as well just makes the world more beautiful, I'd say. If you didn't get the answers that you were looking for to what is SCP-001, go read the articles. If you liked my explanation, then subscribe. And this video is in fact pataphysical in nature. I only exist when you watch me, and so in order to survive, I need engagement, otherwise I'll cease to exist. This was more commentary and connections than really deep lore stuff, and I think that's fine. It's all well and good drawing all the connections, but I think it's more interesting just to look at how they interact with each other. For instance, there were several connections that were not drawn. The administrator in 001 The Legacy has a key, but that key doesn't have anything associated with it. But SCP-001 The Lock has a lock with no key associated with it, so perhaps those two elements are meant to be combined together. The fact that multiple of these are real is fun to me. Keter Duty directly uses them. Those final speeches came from the combination of SCP-001's The Sky Above the Port also references multiple. Story of Your Life does. And it's great. I hope that you go and read some of these, and that there isn't loads more SCP-001 articles released soon after I release this video. I've already had to rewrite it once to incorporate Throne of God, but I mean, that wasn't too bad. Moving on from SCP-001, here are some of my personal recommendations. SCP-1762, Here Be Dragons. Sad, but I like it. It's good. The Ad Astra Per Aspera canon. Not only because Star Trek also uses that motto, but it's just interesting to see sci-fi in this horror medium. It's obviously common to have sci-fi horror, like that's not new, but the way that they incorporate all the anomalies is fascinating. I would definitely recommend The Alternate World of 6001. I personally like Solarpunk, and 6001 kind of follows some of those ideals, so yeah. I also like the Surrealist Department, but that requires taste, I feel, and the joke SCPs, they're always worth a good laugh. For my next video, I will be making a real-life SCP-4010. Hopefully the universe doesn't disappear. Goodbye, live long and prosper. That will be all from me.